last week or so? Well, maybe Jen?
Oh, well, as a healer,
Do you want to share?
I'm always processing stuff.
Okay.
So I decided to get more into Ho'oponopono and started looking up on how I can use that with this weight loss.
What
and
is
how
that?
I can use that as it's a practice called Ho'oponopono, and it's a really interesting practice, and I don't know enough of it to say, in all my expertise, what it's about. I was introduced about it like a couple weeks ago by a hypnotherapist friend. It's I wanted to find something that would help release shame. So basically the process is you take full responsibility for your life and you look inwards, and any kind of issues or problems that come up, you say 4 phrases. And that's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you watch the emotion come up. And I, as an energy healer, I bring in pure energetic light. Some people bring their angels in. But I'm finding that it's really helping me get through a lot of the other clutter that's going on within me. So it's been really useful. So I'm going to use that while we're doing this process.
That's really a healing thing that you're doing. I mean, it's just a really wonderful thing, because that's one of the things we're going to talk about, not that process necessarily, but we're going to talk about loving ourselves as we go through this, loving our body. So congratulations, that's really great. I'm glad that came up for you. I had a story come up for myself, but I'll talk about that later. It fits right into our lesson. So anybody else want to do a quick share?
I'll chime in. So it's interesting about Ho'oponopono because that came up for me about a month ago or so, and I was just totally entranced with it. I haven't really worked strongly with it, but I had some anger issues coming up, and so I was using them to release some anger against others, and I'm finding that it's more about releasing stuff for me. So I've been doing that in my journaling. It's really powerful. Just the statements and everything comes up when it's supposed to. So it's interesting that we're both doing that.
That's really great. Maybe you can lead us through that at some point if you feel comfortable, Jen. That'd be really nice, or Margie, whomever you want to. So anything else anybody want to share? Not? Okay. So let's just do this 1-minute meditation. We'll go ahead and get started with it. So straighten yourself up in your chair, get comfortable. Close your eyes, and I like to put my hands over my stomach when I breathe in so that I can feel that the air is going all the way down to my stomach and rooting me. So put your hands over your stomach, please, and close your eyes. Breathe deep. Let the muscles of your stomach relax as you take in your breath. Feel your stomach expanding. And then as you release, hold your hands into fists and release all of the air, all of the feeling your stomach tighten as you release the breath. And do it again. Please breathe in deeply. Feel your stomach expand, and then let it go again with your hands and fists to release that air. And then one more time. Breathe deep into your hands. Form your fists. Release the air. Now open your eyes and take one last breath. Release. And honor yourself for what eating has done to your body. So we talked about journals, and Margie, you said you've been journaling. I'm sure Jen's been journaling. Kate, do you want me to call you Catherine or Kate?
Well, there was another Catherine in the class.
There is.
So I thought it might be easier to go by Kate because that's my Starbucks name.
Okay. Kate works.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Kate, do you have a journal?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
And is it in a book form or something to write or talk into?
It's a little spiral notepad I have.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Jen, what is your journal like?
I actually been really resistant to it.
Okay.
And I said to another friend of mine who's a life coach, I said, I'm going to commit to you to do it. No, I have not tested her yet because I haven't done it yet. It's interesting. Yeah, and maybe I just don't want to get into some old patterns. I don't really know why.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not the greatest journalist either. And one of the things that I posted later this week was use Evernote. Are you guys familiar with Evernote? It's a little app.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Evernote because it's great. You know, I can open up a sheet and I can talk into it, whatever's coming up for me at that point. And then it just records it, and that's my journal. That's how I look at it. So yeah, it's just like, because I don't like to sit and write because I get involved with it and then other things go by the wayside. So maybe that will help. I don't know. Just a thought.
Can
Margie?
I share too?
Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin is, we do a lot of stuff together, new moon intentioning and all of that. And she does not like to write journal, but she's happy to draw or paint or scribble
Sure.
journal. So that is her way. So you might try having fun with art.
Right. There's all
It's
sorts of
really
ways.
great. I will do that. I feel like that's an inspired direction that you got that I was not listening to, because I just don't want to be. The journals that I have now are very not serious. They're not intended to be like my deep dark feelings.
Sure.
And journal writing in the past has been that. And I've unloaded a lot of that stuff, and even talking about it brings up a lot of emotions. But to make it fun and joyful, I think that's where I need to shift. So thank you, Margie.
Artistic
You're
and
welcome.
creative. That's great. Really great. Beautiful. So are there any, those are kind of your celebrations. We've kind of figured out, a little bit about journaling and so forth. Are there any other celebrations you guys want to talk about? Big insight or anything? Okay. So let's just go on. And this week I am recording. Last week I totally forgot. So if there's somebody who wants to remind me about that and take that on, that would be really wonderful. A big help to me. So, but I do have it on today. So, so I don't know if you're feeling at all like this is like, once again, here we go. Here I am dealing with the stress and the commitment of losing weight, getting more healthy, and maybe there's disappointment down that road because there has been in the past. Anybody kind of feeling like that at all? A little bit? A little bit of failure maybe of kind of what we do to ourselves. So those negative kind of thoughts, if we can somehow blow them out, talk about it, whatever you see a negative belief coming up. There's something that I like to do sometimes when something really negative comes up, and I just write it on a little piece of paper and burn it. Because that just lets it go up into the ashes, because some of these negative feelings about our body and stuff, we just really need to bring them up, acknowledge them, let them go again, as much as we possibly can, because they have a real influence on our body. Sorry here. And we need to be as nice to our bodies as we possibly can. I'm sorry, I'm having, there we go. Okay. So retraining our body isn't really mysterious, as you all know. It's all under our control. And, we can actually recognize these feelings when they come up and let them go and say, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that 5-year-old. I was looking for a picture of me when I was 6 years old. I don't know where it is. It's here someplace. I was going to share it with you because, and if you can find a picture of yourself at a very young age, because this is where a lot of our habits, and we're going to talk about habits today, have started. It's when we were very young. And when we look at these pictures of ourselves, we realize how innocent we were when these habits started. It was nothing, it was, as you'll see as we go through this, nothing that we consciously did to hurt ourselves. But a lot of times we spent the rest of our lives hurting ourselves because of them. So realizing that you're not that person that started out with that habit. And if it's really persistent, continue to do affirmations on it. Keep replacing the thoughts with positive affirmation and allow maybe a better mindfulness to develop around eating if we can. And we'll talk about a couple of ways to do that. But today, what I really want to talk about, and I'm excited about, is because I love the way that the body works, and I love the wisdom of our body, and our body's intelligence systems. It just is amazing to me. So I have a PowerPoint to try to keep me on track so that I won't have to constantly be going back and forth with sharing screen and not sharing screen. So let me get that started. All right. And sharing my screen. So can you all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Excellent. And I can see you guys because I always like to see your faces, beautiful faces. So the body's intelligence system, whoops. There was one other one that I wanted in there. I don't know why it's not showing up, but who knows. Anyway, it's our main operating system, basically. And every body element, as I've spoken before, handles trillions of these chemical connections that are in sync with other chemical connections 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that intelligence system is connected to our digestive system. And remember, I always have these systems in our body that we're trying to clean out. So, and if the talking in the background disturbs you, let me know. I'll close the door. So our body's intelligence system is actually the definition of automation. It provides techniques, methods, and systems of operating and controlling processes by highly automatic means without any continuous input from an operator. That's actually a definition. It might not have been bothering you, it was bothering me. That was actually a definition from one of the books online. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is actually describing what we look at when we think about our computers or our cell phones. They're working in the background, constantly controlling things, and we don't even have to think about it too much. It reminds us to do stuff. It reminds us to check on it, do different things at different times, turns on our lights now that we have smart houses. And our body does the same kind of thing, right? So we don't even think about our hair growing, right? We don't think about our eyes blinking. We don't think about our lungs breathing or our heart pumping, but those are life processes that without those, we wouldn't have hair. We wouldn't even be able, our eyes wouldn't work because they have to stay constantly moist. And we wouldn't live if we couldn't breathe. So these things are going on in the background of our life all the time. And our digestive system is our actual food processing system, factory. It's a food processing factory. And it processes everything succinctly so that every possible nutrient is always extracted from every bit of food that we give it. It does not waste, it recycles everything all the way down to just before we actually poop out the last of the toxins, it takes out any excess water and recycles it in the body. It's an amazing system. So, what is it that might intervene to derail this amazing system? Any thoughts?
Stress.
Stress. Okay. And so stress definitely will derail us. And the other thing is unconsciously, the habits that we have derail us. So this is a cycle of habits, okay? And I want to introduce this because it's just such an important part of our life. We eat usually because of habits. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks, and a sweet after dinner, bread with dinner or before dinner, all of these things. I don't know if those are your habits, but those are fairly common habits that we do. And usually it's just a habit we don't even think about. Habits are the most important influencers of our identity by virtue of their frequency. They contribute most of the evidence that shapes your identity, shapes all of our identity. They're the path to changing our identity. So you can actually change your identity by changing what you do, right? You know that. So, for instance, every time you write a page, you become a writer. Every time you practice a musical instrument, you're a musician. And every time you start walking, you're a walker. And every time you perform a good habit, then you're voting for that identity. Or if you perform a bad habit, that's a vote for that identity. It goes in two different directions all the time. So I want to break down habits. I want to examine how they perform. Every time we go to solve a problem, our intelligence system builds habits. And you saw that there is a cue, and the cue is a reward predictor. A craving is an I want motivator. I want something. That's what the craving is all about. The response is the habit, and the reward is the end goal. So it goes like that in a cycle every time. So our intelligence system builds habits to solve problems, basically. So I wanted to put this into perspective for you, and this is a little story that came to me this week. So when I was a little girl, that little 6-year-old, and actually even younger, well, my entire life, my mom never knew how to cook. We lived on a ranch. We had beef every night. She burned it. She overcooked the vegetables, and she served us salads, iceberg lettuce with tomatoes. I'm allergic to tomatoes, but that wasn't recognized. So I sat down at dinner every night and hated eating. And so what happens in the brain is the brain makes this conscious decision to try to solve this problem. I hate eating. How can I get through this dinner? Because the thing is at the end of the dinner was dessert. And my mom didn't know how to make dessert. She was a great cake maker. She always had, we lived on a ranch. We had great whipped cream for our ice cream. It was chocolate with chocolate sauce on it, or she made cookies. I mean, there was always something for dessert after dinner. And I had to get to that dessert. That was the reward, right? So my brain's trying to figure out how I can get through this meal or these meals. So at first I thought, oh, I got it. I'll chew some of the meat, I'll put it in my mouth, and I'll casually walk to the bathroom and go to the bathroom, right? Because you can go to the bathroom and spit it out in the toilet. Flush the toilet, come out. I got through that part. Let's try some more. Of course, they always filled my plate with their food. I couldn't choose. They had to choose. So it meant several trips to the bathroom, and it didn't take long for my parents to figure out what I was doing in the bathroom, right? Because mysteriously the food is kind of gone all of a sudden, food that was always sitting there on my plate. So that didn't work. It's this trial and error thing that the brain does. And so then I thought, okay, I can get through the vegetables, I can get through the salad, but it's the meat that I really don't like. I don't like this tough, rubbery stuff because it's hard to chew. And I didn't like the taste of it. Plus, I was always one who made friends with our cows. And so eating them was, there's a little mental thing going on there. So I don't like any of that part. So I thought, okay, I'll just chew the meat up in one fell swoop. I get it all chewed up as much as I can. I couldn't swallow it because it would gag me. So then I'd go to the bathroom one time. But that they figured that out too. That didn't work either. So here's this little girl that's trying to figure out how to eat this food, and it keeps failing. So the brain keeps recording that. So then my only choice was how to swallow large amounts of unchewed food. And we always had plenty of milk, right? Milked our own cows. So I was able to do that. I learned how to get it down my throat. And maybe it would take milk, a lot of milk, but I would get it down there because I had to get to the dessert because that's what I liked. That's the only thing that I liked. So you can see how in habit forming with a little girl, this is how this habit goes. Now, I do take supplements, and I can take a handful of supplements, throw it down my throat, and swallow it in one fell swoop. So that ability, and I can do that with a lot of different things too, because when you're not paying attention to what you're eating, you're just throwing it in your mouth, chewing it up, and it goes down, you don't taste it, nothing, right? So that ability, that habit has followed me my entire life. So the useless actions disappeared. Didn't work going to the bathroom, but it worked swallowing the food whole. And so our brain automates this because it gets to the reward quickly. And so it learns next time just how to open your throat, throw it down there, swallow it, and go on. Just move on. And that's what a habit really is. It's a series of solutions that solve problems and stresses that we face on a regular basis. And once we lock in on those cues that predict the success, it tunes out everything else. We're not as highly involved with it. The neurological activity decreases, right? Those are called cognitive scripts. So the brain follows every time you come across that situation. It has this mental shortcut. The conscious mind is a bottleneck of the brain, okay? It can only pay attention to one problem at a time. No matter what you're thinking, if you think that you are multitasking, your brain is working so fast that it's only paying attention to one thing at a time. And so, therefore, it preserves that attention to the most important task at the time, okay? So the habits are the tasks that are not so very important anymore because it uses the habit to accomplish these less essential tasks. So we can sit at our desk and we can swallow that sandwich while we're actually doing a lot of things on the computer, while we're actually paying attention to our businesses or the things that we're writing or our accounting or whatever it is that we're doing all day long. We can eat while we do that because we don't think about what we're doing. So what I want to do over time is to break this down, break this habit cycle down so that all that we have so that all that we think about is that first thing, the cue, and then each week we're going to break it down to each different thing. Now, I was in another class this last week. So this is what I want to say about those of us who swallow this food whole a lot, or at all, or ever. Does anybody ever do that? Or am I the only one who does that?
I think I do it to agree, but I just eat really fast. I tend to eat really, really fast. I never really thought of it as swallowing food whole, but might as well. I mean, I barely chew it.
Right.
Friends are always complaining I'm eating too fast, so I don't know why.
Well, think about it in those terms. Maybe something will come up for you this week or over the next couple of weeks as you consider that idea. But a friend taught me about this one acronym she calls it WAIT. And WAIT, W-A-I-T, stands for What Am I Tasting? You might want to write that down. WAIT, what am I tasting? And so what you do is you hold a piece of the food, whatever the food is, in your mouth, just for a moment before you really start chewing it and swallowing it. Just takes a minute. So I tried that. I had one of the old things is Fritos that I've always loved. It's the last chip because there's only salt and corn in it, right? Well, so there's an organic version of it. And I thought, oh, this will work, these corn chips. And so I put one in my mouth. The thing is that it's a processed food. And this organic version, there wasn't as much salt as there is on Fritos. On Fritos, it's just so much salt, it's unbelievably, I can't even hardly eat them because there's so much salt. But this organic version didn't have so much salt on it. So the minute the salt goes away, and it gets a little mushy because something in, you have all this saliva in your mouth that just kind of takes over to start digesting the food already. It turned into a piece of cardboard. It tasted just like a piece of cardboard. It was like disgusting. And I thought, I'm going to try that again. I have to make sure that that's right. And so I ate one fast. I thought, okay, that tastes like a Frito. And then I ate one slow. And I thought, oh my gosh, this doesn't taste very good. I had to try it like 5 more times because I'm a hard learner. I have to make sure that what I'm tasting. I don't think I'll ever have another one again. And if I do, I'll try that WAIT again. I'll remember that. So that's something that you might want to try yourself. So these cues are kind of interesting. So our brain notices these rewards. And a cue is just a little bit of information that's leading to the reward. It only takes about a millisecond to acknowledge. It's the first indication that we're close to a reward. Oh, it's dinner time. That means dessert, right? That's the reward. We don't even need to be aware of it. It's just something that happens. So if you think of a clock, and that was one of my slides, if you think of a clock and you look at the clock and it's 10 till 12, your brain automatically knows that it's almost lunchtime, right? Maybe you eat lunch around then or whenever it is that you eat lunch. And so your brain is alerting you that it's time to eat. And there's these little hormones floating around your body also. Maybe you see something on the counter, like a pink box, that you know what's in that pink box, right? So these cues are really dangerous, okay, because they are actions that are under the direction of our automatic unconscious mind. So the cues are part of a habit that are completely unconscious. And we tend to fall into these patterns without even realizing it. Because the more repeat that we've had on these patterns, that maybe they started, I don't think anybody here is, Kate correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody here is younger than 40, right? Okay, so these habits generally have been happening for probably 30, 40, 50 years. In my case, some of them 60, close to 60 years, 55 years. And so they've had a lot of repeats, lots and lots and lots and lots of repeats. So these patterns we fall into when we're little, and even as we get older, we don't question them. It's just the way the habit is. Only our awareness makes these habits conscious again. So writing down and journaling our habits without any judgment increases our awareness. And working on something called a habit scorecard is really important. In 1971, we had the war in Vietnam going on, right? And all of a sudden, people in Washington were noticing that a lot of our soldiers were becoming addicted to heroin. And they started doing studies, and they discovered that about 20% of them were actually addicted to heroin. So the senators, congressmen, whomever created this Special Action Office of Drug Abuse Prevention, because they wanted to promote prevention and rehabilitation for these soldiers when they returned home, because they were worried. 20% of our soldiers, that's a lot, because there's a lot of soldiers in Vietnam, right? So they went through the rehab when they got home. What was interesting is what happened after the rehab, because after a year, only 5% of them became re-addicted. And after 3 years, only 12% relapsed. Now, in the community of addicted heroin users in the United States, typically, those people, once they go to rehab, 90% of them are re-addicted after they go home. So what it was is that they changed their environment completely. And what these experts have learned is that our environment is the biggest part of these habits that we have. If we don't restructure our environment, then we tend to relapse. And we expect ourselves to have some sort of heroic willpower. We're not going to do this anymore. But that only lasts for a little bit of time until the next cue comes along, right? So what they found is that if you change your environment, you can change your habit. Now, a habit is kind of like pulling out an old oak tree. Imagine that. An old oak tree isn't going to come out of the ground very well. And these habits are encoded in our bodies, in our emotions, in our physical bodies. Our insides, our cells know what to do when these cues hit us. So changing our environment in some way to reduce our exposure to the cue is what will help us change our habits. Making ourselves feel bad about having a habit, that doesn't work. That's been shown that it doesn't work. In fact, it can actually turn us upside down. It can shame us. And what happens when we get shamed or emotionally upset? We start eating again, right? Or a smoker starts smoking again. You know, it just does nothing for us. So, except increasing our stress, making us feel worse. But what does work is reducing our exposure to that cue, changing our environment. That's why people say, don't eat at your desk. Don't eat in front of TV. You know, I always thought it was somebody just trying to control me. But what it is it's changing that environment, that amount, so that you're starting to pay more attention to what it is that you're eating or where you're eating, or you're not paying attention to that cue. Who cares if it's 12 o'clock? Am I hungry? Do I need food right now? That type of thing. So the other thing they found is that people who do a daily food log lose weight twice as fast as those who don't. So I just want to kind of have you keep that in your mind. Now I am at a dilemma right now because this PowerPoint that I had set up today that doesn't seem to be working is what I had scheduled for some of the pictures for the next part of our of what we're talking about here. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to mute myself just for a minute, and I'm going to ask you guys just to talk about this. Talk about how it is that maybe your habits, maybe there's some habit that you can think of, maybe there's something in your environment that you can change. If you can just change one thing in your environment, if the three of you can just talk, I'm going to mute myself, I'm going to stop my video, my personal video, and have you guys talk amongst yourselves. Thank you.
Well, well, I'll start. I made a recent change because I have realized that denying myself food is just going to make me want it more, and that's the way it is. So what I've tried to do lately, my boyfriend's doctor has been really pushing him to stop eating meat and go more towards plant-based foods. So I've been forcing myself to cook a lot of plant-based foods. And that has really seemed to help because now we're both getting full on that because there's some really good recipes out there. And I don't feel like I'm denying myself of meat because I love meat, unlike you, Carol. I love meat, but if I'm full on other things, then I don't crave it nearly as much. So I don't know. That's what it made me think of what you were talking about.
Beautiful. That's great. Thank you. And gave me just enough time to do what I need to do. I got it.
You're welcome.
Perfect. So, anything else coming up for anybody else? Okay. Plant-based foods, that's really important. Really great thing to do, to be involved with, so that's great. So, we're going to talk more about these habits as we go through the rest of this, but right now I want to talk about some of these biomarkers, because the thing is a lot of times we don't really know how our body's performing. We have a story about how it performs. We have a story about what it is that we're supposed to weigh. Maybe we know what we want to look like, but we don't really know what it is. We don't have an awareness. It's more about judgment. Our reference for our body is a lot of times what other people have told us that our body needs to be at, right? Sometimes it's a really interesting thing, because sometimes when we're not feeling very good about our body, we have these friends who tell us that we're perfect. Don't worry about our body. And I know that they're trying to get us over this hump, but sometimes friends don't always help, right? Sometimes if we feel good about our body, all of a sudden somebody will say something that makes us feel like we're doing something wrong again. Somebody else has an opinion and they voice it. And we take these opinions to heart, whether the person actually knows what they're talking about or not. Have you guys felt that ever?
I have one thing in particular. I was doing a trade with a friend who she's a rolfer, which is a form of massage therapist. They work on skeletal structure. And so and I only bring that up because she just looks at the skeletal system. So, and this is when I was still I was probably about 20 pounds less than I am, but the weight started creeping back up. And so I was on her table, and she said that I had large hips, and it was really deflating. And I brought that back to her later, and she's like, "Oh no, people react to me. I was just talking about the bone." And so I'm 5'3", and so when you're telling me I have large hips, which has been a criticism, I guess I've had a struggle. I've always been, I'm a pear-shaped person, so it was pretty. It was devastating.
Devastating. Sure.
Because you try so hard to not be that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is. It's totally devastating. Thanks for sharing that. One time after we had lost some weight, and it's not easy to lose weight, and my husband and I have worked on this for quite some time. And we were having lunch with my daughter and son-in-law. My son-in-law is huge. He's tall. I mean, I look at him as huge. He's somewhere over 6'6", maybe 6'4", something like that. So to me, that's huge. I'm 5'2". But his whole family is large. They're all very overweight to obese, and they've always been that way his whole life. So we're eating lunch, and I went to the bathroom or something, and while I was gone, he told my husband, he says, "You're looking pretty skinny. Maybe you're too skinny. I think that I think that you need to put on some weight." And so my husband afterwards, he says, "This is what Abe said to me." And I said, "Oh yeah, because Abe knows exactly what weight you should be at, right?" He has no idea, I mean, does Abe know anything about, what a base metabolic rate is? Does he know what his is? Does he know what his weight is supposed to be, much less somebody else's weight? It's impossible. He works on the railroad. No connection to any kind of health thing, okay? And yet, even though my husband and I had worked on this, we worked through a lot of health stuff, and we knew a lot of stuff, it still made him question, am I too skinny? Mm-hmm. So these things happen, we don't even think about it, right? We see women on TV, our family always has opinions. We get these perceived looks by others in clothing stores and different places, right? It's an interesting thing what happens, and what other stories that other people throw on us that make us do something crazy for the rest of our life. Catherine, you shared something on Facebook that was very personal to you, and I don't know if you guys had had a chance to read that. I don't know if you want to share it here or if you want to just let that go, but it is on the Facebook page.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I acknowledge my anger. No, I grew up with a mom who's, she's not dead yet. She's still alive. She's 5. Sorry. And she's 5'6", and she's never weighed a pound over, at the most, 90 pounds. And she comes from a family of people with very, very high metabolisms. And it just so happens that she had 3 kids, none of us have that particularly metabolism. So anyway, she was constantly putting us on diets. That's my earliest food recollection, is diets. I don't remember eating except for her diets. And I think I told you, Carol, I've been on every single diet there she could put her hands on. But anyway,
so and you started at like 10 or something, right?
I think so. That's the earliest I can remember. But because we weren't built like her, she thought we should look like her. And we just were not structured the same. And so I was very angry for many, many years about that. And so my way to get back was to gain weight on purpose, because I know she hated it. and it embarrassed her, and I call it spite eating. So until very recently, that was a big thing. I think until she lives with me now, of course. So I'm being paid back for all that, but it's gotten better actually, because now I just realize it's not worth the energy. So I think I'm hoping that makes it easier for me to lose weight finally.
One more thing that you can let go. It's off your shoulders, right? Yeah. These things that people say to us just, devastate us, like you were saying, Dan. I mean, they just change our life, and they may seem like a simple thing. They may blow them off, but we've taken them inside and we believe them. Even if they tell us, well, that's not what I meant, right? So biomarkers are kind of a way to allow us to see what's really possible and where we need to move the scale, right? We can do self-assessments, and that way we know what the road is. We don't have to wait for our doctor to tell us. We don't have to listen to what anybody else says, because this way we know what it is. Because really what we want is for these habits that are going on in the back of our brain to lead us into a direction of our choosing, to lead us into an identity that's where we want to be. So these personal biomarkers are through a company called Omni. They're online. I'm going to show you kind of an overview of 5 different ones, and I'm going to send this to you later on, but I wanted you to look at it first. And then I'm actually going to bring one of them up, and we'll see how we do, because I want you to be able to go online and check these out. I can give you a sheet with the math, but then we spend all of our time trying to do the math. That's why I love these calculators, because those of us who don't do math well, even are being taught by the ones who do math well, and it just gets into a different thing. So that's why I like these calculators. They teach us how healthy our weight is. They're developed in conjunction with the National Institute of Health and or with the military standards. They're used by medical professionals, and they're a way to compare ourselves with others of the same age, body type, height, and weight. And they give us a baseline to understand our body. And I really want you to go into these with no judgment. There is no judgment. These are mathematical calculations. So they don't come with emotions. And if we start tracking some of these numbers, it's a way to show, because when we're overweight, that extra weight on our body causes illness, as we know. So what we try to do then is to try to clean out all these systems. That's what the ultimate goal is here. So just like a house, if you think, I come from a home design, right? I've done that for 26, 25 years, something like that. And I know that if a house is healthy, the house works well. So I can come in to a house and I can look at various things to see how healthy or unhealthy a house is. You guys can do it too, right? When you go into a house and you smell mold or something, you get this funny smell in your mouth and you try to ignore it and walk past it, but it's there because the house is unhealthy. So it's the same kind of thing with our bodies. The doctors know about these calculators, and when we go and see them, they may tell us that we're overweight or we need to bring our weight down, or if you have a really nice one, they kind of ignore the whole thing. So what I want you to do is start creating your own chart and deciding on your own weight that you want to work with and understanding what your body's systems are. So now I'm going to share the screen because I have my pictures again. Okay. So this may look really complicated, but it isn't. So these five, the first one is called the body mass index, and people have been talking about body mass index a lot, and I hope you can see this okay. But the body mass index, BMI, it compares your weight to your height, and it returns a single number, gives you a rough estimate of how healthy your weight is, and it's an indicator of abdominal obesity. There are ranges of where you should be within the scale. And I'm going to give you this form, and you will have here a goal. You can put what your current is and what your goal is. So you don't need to write any of this down. I'm going to send this to you. And if we can get through that, okay, I thought that we'd start with, after that, our ideal weight, because, you know, weight is something that we all think about. I like this calculator because it gives you 20 pounds range, okay? We always look at weight as one number to get to, but it's not. It is a huge range. And to me, we start out with, you know, maybe we lose 5 pounds. And once we lose 5 pounds, then we can lose another 5 pounds. I never start out with losing 20 pounds or 30 pounds. It's like, oh, it's way too hard. Maybe you start out with losing 2 pounds. So, and you probably remember this little chart. You probably saw it when you were a child. Or maybe you've seen it since, I don't know. But a lot of times our doctors don't even talk about this anymore as to what range our weight is in. So I have that on there for you. And then our body shape, Jen, you talked about body shape, and you talked about body shape. We all have these different body shapes. And so in this calculator, the body shape calculator, it gives us 7 different shapes. And so instead of trying to figure out what shape we are, it'll figure it out for us. Okay, so you'll know what shape you are. So the next time somebody says, gee, your hips are a little large, you say, yeah, that's because I have a triangle shape. I'm small up here and I'm bigger down at the bottom. Okay, that's the way I am. And if you really want to get into some stuff around fat, there's a body adiposity index. Adipose tissue, that's our fat tissue. And this calculator will define the body mass that is just our fat tissue. It kind of estimates how much of our body is fat tissue. And again, it has another calculator showing whether we're underweight, healthy, overweight, or obese. And sometimes you might find yourselves in the overweight category, sometimes the obese category, and you may go back and forth, but it's an interesting health scale. And then finally, these 5 calculators are the ones that I've chosen for you to start with. There are, I think, 11 calculators, and if you really like this kind of stuff, you can check them all out. I don't care. It is kind of interesting. I get bored about it after a while. But I always like to check and see, well, gee, what if I weighed this? What would it be? You know, that type of thing. So the final one is the waist to hip ratio, and it's actually a measure of health. The risk of developing serious health conditions like diabetes, asthma, or Alzheimer's is all tied up in this waist to hip ratio. So it says how much that is, and you have current and the goal. And I will give you all of the links for this. But first, let's see if this will work. It'll get me to the body mass index and the calculator, because I really want to show you exactly what's happening here. So my height is 5'2". My weight is 118 now, and believe me, it wasn't always this way at all. Mm-hmm. So my BMI is 21.6. Now, I'm going to go over this calculator a little bit more, but first, I want to talk to you about how these calculators work. I think this is really important because you notice that there's a lot of advertisements on here. PayPal, because I subscribe to that. This Glowforge, I figured it out because, you know, we do design homes. So obviously this is a printer that somebody's interested in us, how they connect all that. So I just want you to know that there are a lot of advertisements on these that I want you to ignore. There's also these links down here that go to other measurement calculators, and you can get to other ones this way, but to start off with the ones that I'm going to send you for these 5, I don't want you to click any of these links. The thing is that on this side it has what the calculator is, and on the right side it has a way that you can actually scroll down. So I took pictures of each scroll just so you'll understand what you're going to see as you scroll down. I have a habit of kind of going through stuff really fast, and I didn't want to do this time because I think that these are a really important part of your how you're going to be working with your body over the next 5 months. So the next slide will show you, if you imagine me scrolling down, it will show you kind of a message as to what this particular calculator is all about. So this one says the BMI calculator is a useful tool that measures whether you're overweight, underweight, or just right, and so on. It's a little explanation. And it has these ads in it again, and it has these little places where you can click on, it'll take you in a different spot. Don't click on them. Just keep scrolling down on the right-hand side. And then it tells you how to calculate it. So if you're a math wizard or you have a husband or a boyfriend who likes to do that, this will give you the formula, okay? And you can figure it out and you'll get to the same point. And as you continue to scroll down, it tells you what a normal BMI is. And then it tells you what the ranges are. So underweight would be less than 18.5. A normal weight is 18.5 to 24.9, which I run right in the middle of right now. Overweight, 25 to 29, obesity, 30 to 35, and severe obesity and more. So I'm going to bring over the actual calculator again, and I'll show you how this works so that you can see that I don't want you to get lost when you're working with these. So here's my calculation on the left side. This is who I am. And on the right, I can scroll down and get to the rest of this information. Here it's telling me, you know, what this tool does, how to calculate it by hand, what the normal BMI is, and the BMI ranges. So it's just a scroll button. But it looks scary because it looks like it's going off into a different thing, and you might think you have to click on something. You don't have to click on anything. Any questions? Okay, great. Let me see if there's anything that I missed. Oh, the way to follow this whole thing is to notice the titles. So this says the BMI calculator, the body mass index, and how to calculate it with the normal and so forth. So if you just kind of follow these titles, that'll help you also recognize that you're in the right place. And does anybody want to try it? Anybody want to give me your figures and see what the BMI is? No? Okay.
I already know it's bad, so what's the point?
You know, we're not going to judge. I know what you're saying. I know it's bad, but we're not going to judge here. And so I would take the time when you're by yourself and you're feeling like, you know, you're not so vulnerable, to take a look at them. So when we look at the ideal weight calculator.
You know, Carol, I can do it. I'm feeling like Catherine. It's not going to be great, but I'm willing to put it in knowing that I don't have to have this defined. I'll not to lie, I'll probably be devastated after this, but.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me do it. Let me put in some weights.
But I'm curious. I don't mind giving it to you because either I get devastated now or I do it later and get devastated. It's going to be the same thing.
All right. All right. So you're 5'3".
Correct.
And your weight? Or you can just put in a weight. You don't have to put in your exact weight. It's whatever you want.
Well, the last that I weighed, I think it was at 165.
Okay. So your BMI is 29.2. So let's scroll down to the ranges here. So
Okay.
that's in the overweight category. But you haven't
Right.
quite gotten into the obese category. Very good. Okay. Or the severe obese, right? So that's good. Okay. So you know. You don't have to have anybody else tell you. Okay. I at
My
5 foot.
genes told me.
Huh?
My genes told me I'm overweight.
Oh. At 154, which was a pretty common weight for me, I was 28.2. Okay. So the BMI was also at the high end of the overweight category.
Mm.
Okay. So, you know, I mean, we all go through this, and I saw this a long time ago, and I've worked my way through this. So there's no judgment here. These are for you. Okay. These are not, I'm not going to tell you you have to do them, but I am going to suggest that you spend a little bit of time at different times going through some of these. Can I go on to the ideal weight, or does anybody else want me to figure out their BMI for today? Okay. So the ideal weight, it's really quick and simple. 5'2". My
that
ideal
you?
weight is,
Is that for you or me?
this is for me.
Okay.
My ideal weight is between 101 and 136. It's a 25-pound range. Okay, so that you know that there's a lot of different things that say whether or not you're overweight or not. So let's see what at 5'3", 104 to 140. Let's see what it is at 5 foot, 10, 128 to 173. So there's nothing to be ashamed of here. 121 to 163. You can see all that. So it's nice to know that. When we scroll down, here's all the calculations, okay? Just like I said, how much should I weigh? Here's the calculations. Here's the chart, okay? You can do a height weight chart. And it also talks about the limitations of these calculators. They're not perfect by any means, but they're close. It gives you an idea of what's going on here. Do you want to go on to body shape? Yes? No? Okay, we're getting a little late in time. Boy, it sure goes by fast. So maybe we should wait on that one, and you guys can do it yourselves. Or do you want to go on? No, okay. Good enough. So I'll send these to you. You'll be able to click on the links, and you'll be able to look at it. So that's one of your assignments for the week. Visual indicators, other visual indicators of our bodies. I want you to think about taking full photos of yourself. You can dress or you can undress of them. Look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledge who's there, and just be okay with it, because this is you, okay? And what is so amazing is that your body continues to support you every day. You've got an amazing body. It's working really hard to support you. So give yourself a little love as you're taking pictures, because you're all beautiful. And you need to acknowledge that and be open to that. It may not look the way that you want it to look, but guess what? That's you. That's your body. And it's beautiful. And it's an amazing, wonderful thing. So give yourself a little love. Love your body up. It's worked really hard your whole life. I mean, look what it's got. There are 4 beautiful women here today. Absolutely amazing. With such abilities. Everyone here is just, you know, so smart and so beautiful in what you do every day and what you handle every day. Love yourself up. Be willing to look at your whole self, because this is a part of you. This is a part of the whole body. You don't have to take, that's not a requirement to take the full photos. And you certainly don't have to share them with anybody. Those are just for you, okay? I wish I'd taken full photos when I was at my highest weight, just to be able to say, that was me, but I didn't. I took them a couple of times along the way, but it wasn't at my full weight, and I wish I had them now. So let me ask you, how many of you weigh yourselves every day?
Well,
Almost.
yeah.
Raise your hand.
Almost.
Almost. Okay.
Almost.
And how many, how many have heard that you should not weigh yourselves every day?
Yes.
So in our class, I want you to weigh yourselves every day. And the reason why is I don't want you to be afraid of that scale. And it's an amazing tool to learn what the rhythms of your body are, okay? This week, or for the next, we've got 3 weeks until we meet again on April 2nd. I want you to start tracking 3 things. Your weight, a food log, and I want you to notice your cravings. Excuse me. Let's see. We don't need these babies up anymore. Okay, love your body up. Take pictures of yourself. So this is a lifestyle guide. Now you can record your weight, your food log, and your cravings in your journal on a piece of paper if you want, however you want to do it, but I want you to start doing it every day. And then at the end of the week, I want you to put it in here, or you can put it in here daily. I've tried to make this form as easy as possible so that maybe it takes you 3 to 5 minutes to fill this out daily at the most. When you weigh yourself every day, do it the same time every day. You want to make sure that I always do it first thing in the morning, after I pee. Hopefully I can have a bowel movement.
Yep.
You know, I get rid of it all. The thing is that I do drink a lot of water in the morning. So, you know, I have that coming back in. And I take off every stitch of clothing because, you know, I weighed my clothes. They have weight to them. Usually, you know, as much as half a pound. That makes a huge difference to me. Okay? So, you know, it's not a very pretty picture, but, you know, whatever you decide, make sure you do the same time every day so that you're getting the same kind of weight. You're getting the same kind of comparison every day. Okay? So you can, I just kind of remember it, what the weight is. And I do a little dance on the scale when I've lost a half a pound. And I think about when I don't lose weight or if I gain weight, because it's a constant thing, okay? This is not a complete downward slope. You're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to go up, and you're going to go down, and it's going to go like this, okay? And you'll notice that. But what is interesting, over time, we learn these rhythms. If we start recording our food, and I've got areas for morning and lunch and an afternoon snack and dinner, but I'm assuming that some of you probably may be doing morning snack too, so you're just going to have to squeeze them in there somehow. And then also your cravings. Notice what you're craving and write it down. Is it cookies? Is it salt? Is it crunchy? Is it, you know, sour? Whatever you're craving, just write it down, okay? And then we'll talk about next time what to do with all of this information, okay? Just kind of watch what's going on. There's no judgment here. You know, we haven't really talked yet about how to start dropping some of this weight. So You know, you may lose some weight, you may gain some weight, who knows? Just start recording it. Because remember, people lose weight twice as fast when they do their daily food log. So if you get used to it, if you get into the habit of it, you'll find that it comes pretty easy. Literally, I can get this done in like the first 3 minutes after I sit down at this desk. So, and a lot of times I'll do it for 2 or 3 days in the past, but I can't remember a whole week. I don't have time to remember the whole past week, right? I mean, who does? So, you know, just get these done. You can, I made new files for you today in our Google Docs for each one of you. You can drop them in there if you want, or not, however you want to do that. So this is learning how to start some habits, some new habits, some good habits. Okay, this is a really important part of what we're doing here. The biomarkers. Let's see, did I share my screen that you saw this form, right?
Carol, I'm gonna have to drop off because it's really
Okay,
late for
you're
me.
getting tired.
So yeah.
Thank
So
you, Mark.
thank you, everybody. It was nice seeing you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. It's like 10:30 there. I would be asleep already. So did you guys see this? Did I share it with you or not? Okay,
No.
I'm sorry. So this is the guide here. It has the dates, it has the week up here that you can write what week you're on, write down your weight, write down your food log. This is what I'm going to drop in your class for this week, okay? Along with your links to your biomarkers. So just to kind of recap, we talked about habits and what habits do and how they form. I want you to start thinking about habits and journaling about your habits that you've noticed. I want you to try 1 or 2 of the biomarkers, see where you're at, see how that makes you feel. Write me a dirty note about that it devastated you if you want.
You might get some of those.
Feel free to do that. I know I'm going to hit some emotions here. There's just no doubt that we can talk about weight without hitting some emotions. Journal your food, journal your weight, journal your cravings using this lifestyle guide. It's the easy way to do it. In your journal, your emotions around, you know, developing these habits that are going to be hard, and the way you're feeling about these biomarkers. Any questions? Okay.
Nope.
Next class is on April 2nd. I dropped the link for you to start scheduling a coaching class, okay? I hope that, Kate, I saw that you scheduled 3 of them. That's perfect. Schedule them way in advance if you can. And I hope that you will also, Jen, and I know Susan and Margie will probably listen to the end of this also. So start scheduling those so that we can talk about some of these things that are coming up for you. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you so much for being here. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your week.